Welcome to the Tailgate Podcast with your host, Al Blanton. At Tailgate, we celebrate the rich history of sports in the state of Alabama. So come with us as we relive great moments, great games, great players and coaches, and in the process, preserve memories for a lifetime. I'm recording now, and I want this to be just very conversational, very relaxed. I mean, I want to just kind of talk freely. I had those questions. Look, were those okay?
Very good. You did your homework.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you. And, I know our paths crossed, man, I guess 10 years ago. But I'm really excited about this interview and learning more about your program. And, I know you guys had a tough loss in the Northeast Regionals to the three-time state champion Hoover. It looked like it was a hard-fought battle, bloody, um, and it was really an unfortunate draw for you guys to get them in the Northeast Regionals, and you ended up 32-2. So as you kind of pull back from that, how do you assess your year?
I mean, um, I don't think the ending sums up the year and the run we had, not just this season, but the last four seasons since these guys, the senior class, joined our program. JD Gossett joined our program in seventh grade. Braden Rivers joined it in eighth grade, and then everybody else joined our program in ninth grade. And so an historic run really for these guys that culminated in a senior season that, 7A basketball hasn't really seen. We don't have the championship at the end of the deal to kind of solidify their stamp. But, I had somebody tell me recently, like if they're talking about Hoover being one of the greatest 7A teams of all time, or one of the greatest teams of all time in our state, is like how far apart are you guys from them? And they're the champs. They won it 3 years in a row. They had to carry that weight. We just wanted to meet them in the regional. We wanted to play those guys, and we wanted to go through those guys. And they made a few more plays than we did in the fourth quarter, but I couldn't be more proud of how our guys fought in that game. And I've talked to so many people that said that was one of the best games I've ever seen in person. And then people go back and watch them film. They're like, man, unbelievable game. And so I don't have any regrets in terms of like how it ended. I mean, we went 32-2 and combined 4 points was the deciding factor. And so you coach, a long time, and you might never coach a guy that plays Division I basketball. I'm in, my seventh season, and this is now number 7 for me. 7 players that have played Division I basketball, including these guys, and so I feel very fortunate that I get to coach these guys, and our program has gotten to the place that it has. Um, so to answer your question, I just have no regrets. I don't feel any sort of loss or sadness. Just very thankful for them, and just an unbelievable season we had. You get kind of caught up in it, and you get from game to game. But I really tried not to do that this year. I really tried to enjoy these guys every day in practice. And I had former assistants and former players tell me they thought I've gone soft. I said, no, I'm just trying to enjoy them, man. Like trying to let some stuff go that may not matter as much as I used to think it did.
Is that something that kind of evolves like as you're coaching a group of guys? I mean, you get to where you trust your guys and then, you can kind of back off a little bit. Is there kind of an evolution when you have some guys that are doing it for several years in a row?
Yeah, I mean, at one point this year, I thought like, have I ever coached anybody else besides these guys? Like, it feels like I've had them for so long that we've gone through different stages, like early stages of like, cracking the whip and making them understand we don't do certain things, and then pushing them to want more as 10th graders, and then as juniors, like they had to kind of take I'm not going to say backseat, but Caleb Harrison was the man last year and was a Mr. Basketball candidate, had one of the best seasons that this school has ever seen. And they were all juniors, a part of that ride, and had a great team. But he was the focal point. And then this year, the whole message was, they all had their scholarships and done out of the way before we even started practice. And so the whole message this year was that we're going to enjoy it and that we were going to go after it with no fear. And that's kind of how they approached the whole season. And so it just seemed like more of a laid back year in terms of, I don't think my blood pressure got up as much as normal. I don't think I had to put anybody on the line as much as normal. And that has a lot to do with how mature this group was and just how easy they were to coach this year.
You mentioned your three studs, Gossett, Rivers, and Walker, and those guys ended up making all state. And I kind of want you to talk about each person individually, each player individually. What did each of those guys bring to the table for you guys this year?
Yeah, I think you got to start with JD. Just an unbelievable competitor, um, unbelievable kid, just incredible kid on and off the floor, but one of the most fearless competitors I've ever been around. And don't misquote me when I say this, but I know he's not Michael Jordan. I know he doesn't possess those traits, but he does possess a very similar competitiveness, particularly in big games, that is very similar. That guy just goes after it, and you saw that if you watched the last game against Hoover. He went toe to toe with Dwayne Brown and in the fourth quarter, and it was electrifying. And so he just made plays for us all year long and was kind of undervalued, I think, the last couple of years and did a lot of things for our team that maybe people didn't recognize. But this year, everybody recognized him, and he's had an incredible season. We're going to miss him. Be hard to replace him. Um,
And he's going to
Simon
Lipscomb, right?
going to Lipscomb, play
Yep.
for Lenny Acuff. Fun fact about that, they grew up behind UAH, and he and his brothers would crawl. They would walk down the street and then crawl under this opening in a fence that spilled right on the backside of the gym. And that's how they would go to all their games, their camps when Lenny was there. And, it's kind of funny to see JD sign with Coach Acuff. And, that relationship was forged a long time ago.
Yeah, that's
And
neat.
it's very, very cool story there. Simon Walker, big time talent, big time shooter, uh, prototypical size, has had to carry the weight of expectation for his whole life, which is kind of similar to a lot of these guys. But, his dad being a really good player at UCLA back in the late 80s, early 90s, played overseas for a long time. He actually appeared in the movie Blue Chips, if you remember that movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Nick Nolte,
so
Pete
that's
Bell,
it. That's right, Nick Nolte.
Neon Badeau.
Hey, what's funny is that was made, what, 30 years ago? And now,
Yeah.
like, if you made that movie, everybody they'd be like, oh, I got you. You can pay the players.
Yeah.
Um, Simon had a really good year. He got hurt probably December the 6th, and we were up in Knoxville. And he really was never 100% after that. We actually shut him down at the end of the season, had a knee issue, saw doctors in Birmingham, and we were fortunate that he was able to come back. We held him out of the area tournament. He had only practiced like 2 days maybe before the regional, and this is kind of a good story for him. Like, he decides to play, and we're like, great, we need you to play. We're playing Vestavia in the first half, and we have four starters out with foul trouble. And he, who has not really played any game minutes in a month, comes in and buries like 4 threes in the first half, keeps us afloat. And then he played lights out against Hoover, and that just kind of summed him up. Like, when it was time to deliver, like, the guy delivered. And I hate that he wasn't healthy his whole senior year, but really good player. Did a great job of, you know, playing within himself and not letting expectations kind of dictate how he played because who else signed with Auburn before their senior season in Alabama? Nobody else. So you could argue that he was one of the most coveted recruits of the state. And, a lot of kids would fold under that kind of pressure and expectation, particularly if you get hurt. And I was just really proud of him for kind of showing moxie and not doing that. He just wanted to play with his guys and help us win. And I thought he played with a lot of selflessness this season. And then lastly, Braden Rivers. I'll get to Eli in a
We're gonna get
minute.
to
Braden
Stapler in a
Rivers,
second, but
yeah. Uh, let's talk about Eli for a second. Somebody's got to set the table, right? Somebody's got to, serve others. And, he just really understood his role, and he's really good at his role. He's really good at running a team. And I thought he had a fantastic year leading our team and practicing in games and being an extension of the coaching staff on the floor, understanding that, JD needs to get the ball in transition, understanding Simon needs to get catch and shoot threes, understanding Josh needs to get some touches. And so he just played with a lot of maturity this year, and he shot like 43% from three. And so, we wouldn't be as nearly as good without Eli as we were, and became a really good on-ball defender, which will help him well in that D2 league that he's going to play in at the Gulf South. And so I just want to talk a minute about Eli. Lastly, Braden Rivers had a fantastic season. I felt like it all came together. He's a guy that moved here from Mobile in the seventh grade, and since he's been in our program, I thought that he's had a lot of potential, raw athleticism, can get to the rim, good rebounder, but had not put it all together. There'd be something missing the last few seasons, and this season he just played with kind of a reckless abandonment. And the thing that we value most about Braden is how hard he played, but you got to have somebody that doesn't care about scoring. You got to have somebody that doesn't care about accolades. And, all these guys did care about accolades, but Braden really didn't. I mean, he really just wanted to play and compete, and was never concerned about shots or minutes or anything like that. And just kind of made it easy to coach. To have a stud like that, that's going to be a D1 player that was no maintenance at all. And it became a strength. By the second half of the season, could argue our best player down the stretch, was our area MVP. And, he just does a lot of things well at 6'7", 200 pounds, and will be really good at UNC Asheville for those guys next year. And
and Stapler's committed to Lee University, right?
correct.
Okay.
He's going to play at Lee. Good fit for him, and look forward to seeing him grow and mature there.
Yeah, I knew his dad. I know his dad, and we've got a connection with Walker College. Scott played at Walker College. I played at Walker College for Coach Glenn Clem, who was a
Yeah,
coaching legend. It's amazing how many times Coach Clem's name comes up in some of these podcasts. But and then of course I know his grandfather as well. So
yeah,
Ronnie, coaching legend. But I want to talk about one more guy, Evan Toms. I know he's
yeah.
coming back. I think he's a 27 graduate. What's your message to him right now? I know that he's extremely talented and going to be getting a lot of looks. What's your messaging toward him?
Yeah, I mean, Evan is, has a chance to be one of the best players, if not the best player to ever come through here. He's just 15. A lot of people don't know that. He won't turn 16 until later in the fall of his junior year. And so if you take that into equation, like the guy really should be a ninth grader. And so there's a lot of maturity that's got to happen for him that we can't speed up. I mean, it's just going to take some time. But in terms of physical gifts and ability and all that, it's all right there. And I think the message is clearly, it's time for you to step up and take the reins and be more of a dude and be an alpha, and not just on the floor when you're playing on offense, but talking on defense and bringing physicality on defense. And when guys don't do certain things, you're holding them accountable, just like these other guys held you accountable. And so in the locker room, he's got a great personality. You would have a really good time interviewing him. I had him on an interview earlier this year with Eyeball Podcast, and they wanted to interview him, and I didn't know what to expect. And I'm sitting there next to him, and I was like, this guy's got a personality for the TV here. He's pretty funny. So, looking forward to him kind of anchoring the deal next year. Um, I think one of my biggest messages is don't go anywhere. There's this state over here called Georgia that can do NIL, and they've got prep schools, and that stuff's real. And he's already had to kind of knock some of that away even since the season ended. But I feel like he'll have a great opportunity to really improve here over the next 2 years and have a chance to do some things that other guys haven't.
That's a temptation that we didn't have growing up. I mean, back in the day, you didn't transfer at all. I mean, that was just not a thing that happened. And now you've got all these extraneous things that are factoring into a kid's decision to come back to a school. How difficult is that to navigate?
Well, it's not as difficult as I anticipate it being once NIL comes to Alabama. I'm not saying that any inside scoop. I'm just saying it's going to happen. When the neighboring state's doing it, they're going to figure out a way to bring it here, and so I think that's going to create will probably create more rules about transferring within the HSA that, it's pretty hard to transfer now. You got to make bona fide move and all that stuff. I think at some point it's going to be a lot more difficult, a lot easier. And so right now I'm just kind of holding my breath, like, when is that coming? Because, we don't operate on the same wavelength as a college. We don't have those kind of resources, and to just kind of open it up and have the same model as a college is not very wise in my opinion. But I mean, it's a real thing. Like, we have guys that go play in AU tournaments, and um, we went and played Montverde last season, and when we got back on Monday after playing those guys to a good game, I had a call from a SEC school wanting to get a current player out of his, you know, scholarship and come there, and then I had another school call that was a prep school wanting access to another one of our guys, and it's a high level prep, and so like that stuff's out there, and I'm sure Coach Ware at Hoover's had to deal with that the last few years. I'm sure there's some other coaches in the state that had to deal with that, but I'd rather be coaching guys that we have to do that than not have those kind of guys to deal with that type of distraction. I'd rather them be really good and coach those kind of players and deal with that than not. So part of it.
And I want to talk about the Huntsville basketball culture kind of as a whole. I mean, it has been just so robust across the years. So kind of paint me a picture of what that's like. And I know you and I were talking about resources before we got on, but you got a lot of resources. You got a lot of money in that area. But what is that like? What is that basketball culture? And even in your own school, you can even comment on that because you've got a volleyball coach, and an athletic director that's had tremendous success. So talk about the Huntsville basketball culture as a whole, the Huntsville sports culture as a whole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for starters, when you're saying this, I'm thinking like we're getting a new weight room in our basketball weight room in the off season that I found out about on Monday, and not something that I necessarily push, but we've got resources in our district, and we're very fortunate that we get to have those resources angled towards us, and it'll help our athletes. And so, there's not a lot of city school systems that can do and provide what Huntsville City can do. A lot of the most successful school systems are the ones that are like the one-off deal, the Thompsons, the Hoovers, the Mountain Brooks, Vestavias, and so we're kind of a weird deal where we got 5 high schools in our district, but we've got great facilities, and I think we have the best gym in the state of Alabama. There's not another gym that's got 2 end zones behind the basket, which makes for an unbelievable atmosphere when you put both student sections in there. And so, um, our school has not ever really seen any success in basketball on the boys' side until the last 7 years, and um,
It's been
but
Butler,
it has,
Bo Johnson, those programs.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you had other programs in Huntsville that were rocking it, and Lee and Johnson and Butler and Hay, back in the day, uh, Grissom with Coach Ronnie Stapler. And so it's kind of Huntsville's era right now to, I guess, be that flag bearer at the moment. And, we're going to see if we can keep that going as long as possible. But the school has had a lot of success in baseball and in volleyball. We've got, I don't know, 10 or 11 state championship banners up in the gym for volleyball. And so, um, baseball's won it a time or two. Wrestling has now won it in the last few years twice. Our track and cross country program is phenomenal. And so I love being in a place where, sports is a big deal and we get great, great, great support from our principal. She's unbelievable. And then you got our district that supports us as well. And so it makes wanting to stay here a lot more appealing. And, we get to coach really good kids. We got two feeder schools that feed into Huntsville High, which is not normal. You got Hampton Cove and Huntsville Junior High. So that's a good thing as well. But in terms of the culture, like, what you see was not always here in terms of basketball. And it's very hard to create. It's even harder to maintain. And it's next to impossible to kind of take it even further to like continue to create momentum and energy year in and year out. And I feel like that's one of my main jobs right now. I tell young guys all the time, it wasn't that long ago for me when I got started. This is my 20th season in high school basketball, but I have a lot of young guys will call and ask, when they're getting in it, like, what's some advice? And I'll say, man, number one, be you. Don't try and be somebody else. Number two, you got to make it big time because if you don't, nobody else will. And then number three, you just got to enjoy it. You got to enjoy the time with the players. And so I feel like I try to focus on those three things the most. And then the last thing is just trying to maintain our level of culture that we have here. And so that's like one of my biggest jobs at the moment. So um, I'm fortunate and glad to be in that spot. Know a lot of people want to be in this spot, and so just excited that we've been able to have the kind of success and players we've had the last several years.
I do a lot of articles and I do a lot of interviews and to me one of the most interesting case studies would be Bucky McMillan at Samford. And
So
you coached under him two stints. And what did you pick up from him that you've kind of implemented in your program?
man, we would be here for a really long time if I really answered that. I'll try and keep it brief. I mean, Bucky's the man. Like he's one of the best coaches, if not the best high school coach to ever come through Alabama. And forget like his ability. Like he's got an ability that I kind of it's akin to Brad Stevens. Like when Brad Stevens at Butler, you just knew this guy was gifted, and a lot of the success they had was because of his gifts. And that's kind of how I feel about Bucky. Like he's just a gifted person. And so when you're around that, like I knew it the first time I met with him. The first time I met with him after an interview, I was 23 and he was 24. I was 22, turning 23. It was just going into his second season. It was in early August, and I remember sitting in his office talking to him just ball and watching film. And I was like my dad coached in college for 42 or college and high school for 42 years. And I remember I've been around coaches my whole life. I've heard the best of the best in conferences and videos and things. And I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, this guy's not normal. This is different, and I need to try and stay around him as much as possible. See what I can pick up. But to answer your question, he has a relentless energy towards the details, and that sounds kind of boring, but like he absolutely hammers the details at 100% in all four phases of the game. Everybody thinks of him as being an up-tempo guy on offense and full court defensive presser. And though he is very good at those things, he's equally good in all four phases of the game. And then the X factor for me is he gets his teams to play so fearless. And that's a really hard thing to do. Like, not everybody's built the same and not everybody comes from the same walks of life. And he just had a way of getting guys to run through a wall a lot harder and faster than everybody else, and get them to believe that they were good enough to beat the Lakers when they probably weren't good enough to beat, Parkway Christian sometimes.
All right,
Um,
let's hold up just a second. I got questions, man. I got
yeah,
this is interesting to me. And like, is it a let's talk about that particular point, okay, about getting guys to run through a wall. You've got several different philosophies. I mean, you've got the Knight philosophy, and that they were going to run through a wall for Knight, and that was a negative motivation.
Sure.
I don't believe I'm hearing you say that there's negative motivation like a Knight might. Maybe there's some of that, but what
Th-
creates that dynamic?
There was a healthy fear there. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I think that he could provide the healthy fear though because they knew how much he cared about them, and he just had so much passion for what we were doing, and he it was all about a unit. And so when you get kind of lost in it's not about me, it's about the unit, then you go through that wall together as a team. And that's just kind of what I witnessed year after year. And I see it now at Samford. And I don't think they were as good this year. He would tell you that. I don't think they were as good this year. And I didn't think his team necessarily played like I'm used to seeing his teams play. And I think a lot of it had to do with, um, a lot of 1 year guys that are coming for like 9 months, and it's hard to develop what we're talking about in such a short amount of time. And I don't think they possess that same level of energy that his other teams have played with. Yeah, healthy dose of fear for sure. And then I don't know, man. He just had a way. I remember one time we were playing. We were in. This was the Elite Eight game, the first year we won the first state championship at Mountain Brook. So 2012, 2013, and we're about to play a really talented Lee high school team out of Huntsville that we had seen earlier in the year, like the opening game of the season. We traveled to Huntsville to watch them play the season opener because we knew we could play them in the regional. And you didn't have all this film stuff like you do now. Like you had to see them in person. And I was deflated. I got in the car and I was utterly deflated after that game. And everybody was quiet. It was me, him, and Tyler Davis. And we got in the car. Nobody said a word till we got on off 459 or got on to 65, which is about a 20-minute drive. And Bucky goes, "Well, we don't have to beat them now. We just got to beat them in a few months." And like he wouldn't let me say anything that I wanted to say. Like I want to be like, "Man, we cannot beat those guys. Like they are so good." And he just wouldn't ever let that doubt creep in. And so fast forward 3.5 months, we're about to play the league. We're preparing for the game, and I'm still kind of like, I don't know how we're gonna beat these guys. Tyler Davis kind of looks saying the same thing. Bucky comes in the day before we play. It's the last practice, and he's like, "All right, I got it. I know how we're gonna beat them. We're gonna beat them." And he goes in there. He tells everybody the game plan. He tells the players the plan. We go out there, and he just had this confidence. I don't know to this day whether he really believed we are going to beat them, but he had to trick everybody. And we get in there in the locker room the day of, and he's got like this sound bite on this stereo going, and it's about belief. And he comes in there with this speech, and I'll never forget it. He had great speeches, but I never forget that one. And it had me ready to run through a wall. And I believed. I'd been doubting for 3 months, and I believed we were going to go beat them. And that game was an unbelievable third quarter, unbelievable fourth quarter. We win by 3, and we go win the first state championship in school history with a bunch of guys who played on the JV team as 10th graders. These guys were now seniors. So it wasn't like they were just so talented that we had to have them up on varsity as 10th graders. And that just kind of summed him up, man. Just unbelievable motivator, relentless to the details, and had a way of just inspiring people around. Like we had, I remember our first Final Four game. We walk out of the tunnel at the BJCC, and there's like 10,000 people in neon, and I just was blown away. Like I knew we were doing the neon out. I knew we'd have some people there. I had no idea it'd be 10,000 people in neon, and that was just a surreal experience. That he helped kind of create that energy, and so I don't know. I probably killed all your questions right there, but
No, I mean, it seems
he's the
like
man.
there's a brilliance about him, and I don't know him well at all. But it seems like there is a brilliance about him, but also there's a confidence in that. Okay, we've got 3 months to go from here to here, and I'm confident enough in my ability to make this team better over the course of 3 months that we can go get those guys the next time. Is
That's
that
right.
fair?
100%. And that's, you asked me, what did I take from him? There's so many things I've taken from him, but that approach has been my deal since I got here. It was not focused so much on the end deal and where we might end up, but just, hey, this is where we want to be. All right, we got a snapshot of it. Now we got to attack every single day and stack days on days on days on days, and let's put ourselves in that position to go try and win it. And it's definitely the right approach. It's definitely something similar that Nick Saban talks about with the process. But um, yeah, I mean, to answer about Bucky again, like we're just seeing the middle part of his chapter. Like there's going to be another chapter coming at some point, and you just know it. You know it's coming. Like he's going to get a Power Five job, and everybody in Alabama is going to be like, "Man, we knew it." He's just got that kind of ability, and I know I'm pulling for him. He's still relatively young. I think he's 41. I'm 40, so he's the man, dude. You got to get him on the Tailgate podcast. He's good too on the tailgate.
Come on, Bucky. We need
That's
you, man.
right.
I want to pick your brain.
No doubt.
And we can keep going on about that. But you make a great point. I mean, I think like one of the most important things for a coach is his or her ability to exude that confidence. I mean, if a coach isn't confident, if a coach doesn't believe, the players can pick up on that.
Yeah. 100%, man. These guys are not stupid. Like, I think the players are a lot more aware of things now than they used to be. And they play for a lot of people too. They got AAU stuff that they do, and so they're around more than just one coach, and they can kind of tell who's genuine and who's not. And um, that's one of my things with our guys. I'm always trying to be genuine with them, and I'll call them out and tell them the truth. But there's been plenty of times where I've had to trick them, and or I've had to try and generate the same level of belief. Like I genuinely believed this year we were going to beat Hoover. There was nobody in our locker room that thought we would ever lose to Hoover. Everybody thought that. There was a different level of confidence in our team this year than we've ever had. And it wasn't manufactured. It's just we were confident in who we were. And we didn't have to change a whole lot. We knew who we wanted to be in that game. And, just didn't get it done. And I don't feel bad about it. I mean, I tip my hat to them because that's how good and how special that Hoover team was. But it doesn't take away from the fact that our guys were special as well in their own right.
The first time you and I met was back in, I guess, 10 years ago at Cornerstone. And I want to know a little bit about that experience. Was that your first head coaching job?
It was. I
Yeah.
was very young, and we had success at Mountain Brook, and I was just kind of wanting to do my own, not do my own thing, but I just wanted to run a program. And I probably jumped out there maybe a little early. I don't know, but Cornerstone was a very hard season of life for me because I went through uh, death, I went through divorce, I went through cancer on my face here, and but God was very faithful to me during that time, and it was from the basketball side of things and organizational side of things. Like I learned so much, like not just the basketball program. I was the athletic director year two, and you know, creating a standard and ordering uniforms for all sports and creating the logos and getting the gym spruced up and all that. Like, it was a great experience for me, raising money for a weight room that we didn't have. And then you're not coaching, and so at the time that was 6A was the highest class. Left Mountain Brook after two state championships, go do that, and we were 1A. And not only that, we were like the third smallest 1A in the state. And so our varsity team probably would not have beaten Mountain Brook's JV, in all reality, my first year. And it was a losing season, but it was a season I learned a lot. The next year we went to the Elite Eight and had a really good season. And but I mean, it was very eye opening in terms of how humbling it was for me in all phases. And I don't regret any of that time there. It was a sweet time in my life for me to be there and get to be with those kids, and probably got to do things that I didn't know I was skilled enough to do, or if I wasn't skilled enough, I had to figure it out. And so it was more than just coaching basketball. The basketball was probably like 5% of my time there. Um, so we met during that video shoot. And I don't know that you had those glasses and that gray hair there, but
Double chin. Then
that's right. That's right.
I'm trying to slim down a little bit, man. I'm dealing with some gray here. I've still
Hey,
got
you're pulling it off, man. I think the glasses are good addition.
yeah, well, I've got to kind of tilt my head now. I've got better angles, I try to go high to low on the video or the photo.
That's
Um, I want to talk about your dad in a second, but you mentioned something, and I think I tell people this, like if you start talking to a coach, like at some point within about 4 seconds, they're going to start talking about their team. And I did it when I was coaching, like I really made coaching an idol. I mean, it just became I just ate, slept, and drank coaching. That's all I wanted to talk about. Um, I feel like out of anything, any profession, that is the hardest profession to not make it an idol. You just wear it, man. And I want to talk about that for you.
Mhm.
Has there been a progression there where, you know, um, maybe it meant too much to you at some point in your career, and especially maybe younger, and now you've kind of grown through that. So I want to talk about that, and then I want to talk about your dad too. And I know he was such a legend in coaching. So kind of combine those two thoughts, and I want to know about his impact in your life and how you process that during that time.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that when I was younger, uh, before the age of 18, man, I made basketball an idol for sure as a player. And I mean, I would, go to the gym on Friday nights in high school by myself and completely fine with it. I was obsessed. And I went through that phase at that point, and it just left me empty, just being honest. And I came to the end of the whole deal like this is not worth it, and gave basketball up to go. I decided not to play in college. I went and worked in ministry in college, and it showed me that I probably don't want to do ministry full time my whole life, but I definitely am not going to let basketball be an idol. And through several years of that and some wise people that God put in my life, I was able to come back to basketball in a coaching aspect and with a new set of lenses. And, for 20 years, I've tried to keep that, at bay and try to keep the main thing, which is, you know, I'm so competitive. I want us to win. I want us to do all those things, but man, I do really want to impact these guys in a positive way. And because I do know that that road leads to that other road I'm talking about is it leads to emptiness. And, where am I placing um, my identity? And now I'm 40 and we've had a lot of success here. And so there has been a temptation at times over the last few years to want to chase that or maintain that or make it more than it is. And, fortunately, I've got a great wife and great people around me that has helped me kind of try and keep the main thing. And that's, number one, I got to coach the person and before I can get to the player. And so I don't think we do it perfectly. I don't think I do it perfectly by any means. I know I make mistakes with these guys, but my intention is not to let this become an idol and to not chase all that because it just ends and it's empty and it's void and so I'll kind of enjoy coaching from this side of things with that aspect as opposed to and I'll tell you to answer your question. I'll tell you where I really got challenged was my fourth season here. All right, so we lost three Elite Eights in a row. Keep in mind the school had never been an Elite Eight. We go to the Elite Eight my first year here with a losing record, lose to Hoover by a couple, but weren't expected to get there. And my third season, we go to the Elite Eight again. We play Spain Park, we lose by one. Love that group of seniors. The next year we go back, we weren't expected to. We go back to the Elite Eight, We lose to Spain Park again, and we had a lead going into the fourth quarter. And then the next year, so these guys, I guess it was their 10th grade year, we lost this. We were the favorite uh, in the regional that year, and I thought we were going to play Hoover in the state championship, and we get upset in a low scoring game in Spain Park, and I went home thinking that I lost the game, that I got out coached, and all these different things, beat myself up. And a few days later, I was quickly reminded that God has a plan, and don't go down that path, because you can go down that path too when you lose sometimes, and you don't want to. But 3 years in a row like that really challenged me, and kind of seeing where is my identity here. And I think the last two seasons we've had have been two of the more enjoyable ones for me. And I probably should have felt a lot of pressure both years, but I really didn't. Um, and so I'm very thankful for that. Talking about my dad, he was just unbelievable guy. I mean, every player that he ever coached that I can remember always loved him, and they enjoyed him, and he just had a great personality. They played hard for him, but from all walks of life. Like, he coached in college for a long time, and at his funeral, it was cool to see, all walks of life show up to his funeral, and the men the guys that he had impacted. It wasn't just um, private school kids at Trinity, or guys he had coached at AUM in the 80s and 90s, but that was his gift. Was he had a gift with people. And I also think that he did things with joy and passion. He hated to lose, just like you and me, but he did things with a lot of joy and passion. That's one of the things I took away. He was also very detail oriented. So being around my dad and being around Bucky, I just kind of felt like that was the hidden gem. Like, if you can be detail oriented in this deal, like, it makes up for a lot of things. And I really wish that he could be here to see these teams at Huntsville play. That he would love these teams. I told our team that this year, that they kind of had his heartbeat a little bit, and he would love watching them play and just how they interact with each other. And so even though it's been 7 years going on 8, I feel like he's still kind of right there with me.
When my grandfather passed away, my grandfather was a circuit judge in Jasper, and the Alabama Senate passed a resolution after he passed away, and they were kind of outlining some qualities of him. And one of the things that it said, and I'll never forget it, it says he was a kind-hearted gentleman who had the attribute of bringing out the best in people.
Yeah.
I just thought that
Wow.
was such an incredible,
Yeah.
a kind-hearted gentleman who had the attribute of bringing out the best in people. And when I read that quote from Coach Ragsdale about your dad, he could always find a way to make you smile.
Yeah.
And what an incredible thing to say about somebody, because a lot of times when somebody sees me coming, I just wonder what their thoughts are sometimes. But to have the ability to make people laugh and make
Hmm.
people smile, and certainly in a profession that, like, I mean, typically about 50% of the people really like you as a coach, and then about 50% of the people, the guys that sit on the bench and have to hear complaints from their mamas and daddies, they may not like you that much. So to
Yeah.
hear compliments about your dad in that regard is really remarkable.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. He was hilarious. And I've got 3 daughters, and one of them is genuinely hilarious, and it reminds me of him. I think she might have gotten his personality.
How old is she?
Um, she's 3. She's the baby. There's a 5 and a 7-year-old as well, but the 3-year-old is just kind of funny, and like, I'll crack up at her. And so that's it, man. Like, he was at, like, I was coaching with him when he was probably in his 60s, and he'd already had a full career at that point and had accomplished a lot. And he just was so joyful, and still had that fine balance of, like, passionate and intense, but could be equally funny and loose, and makes for a enjoyable experience. These guys, at the end of the day, I think they want that. You might have one every now and then that's the nut job that likes being yelled at and pushed to the brink, and they eat that up. But for the most part, like 99% of them, they want to enjoy what they're doing. And I think it's important to kind of keep that levity there with the guys, whether it be high school, college, pro. I mean, anytime you're doing something, you're putting a lot in, like you kind of want to enjoy it. You don't want it to always just be hard and intense. He
Yeah.
was a gift. He had a gift at that.
Well, going back to Coach Clem, I mean, it was like he could be so hard, but then he would sit us down and he would like tell us these stories and tell, and have these anecdotes and quips and things like that. And it made the game a lot more enjoyable. And I think when you're around that kind of personality, it just enlivens and enriches your experience. Do you bring that same sort of quality to your team? Is there a time on, during the year that maybe you do something a little bit unconventional, bring a little humor into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty laid back in the off season, like right now, and they probably don't know what to do with that. But I mean, I've tried to make it a point in season to also kind of be loose, particularly the last 2 years. Like I know those guys have felt some pressure, like when you have as many college players as we had on our roster, you're ranked nationally in the top 30 the last 2 years, and everybody says you're supposed to be this or that. Like they're still teenagers, like they're going to feel some pressure. So I feel like we tried to be a little looser sometimes in practice with guys and be extremely positive with them when they do something well and not hammer them every single time they do something bad. There's a tendency as a young coach to want to win every single game, no matter what, and to hammer every time they don't do something right. And that just conditions a very um, mechanical athlete who only is taught that it's good if you do right, and you can't even really enjoy it. And so I think there's got to be some joy in there, and there's got to be we got to let some things go sometimes. So that's kind of in 20 years and 10 as I guess 9 as a head coach. I don't think I did that early on. I think I've had to kind of grow through that. So part of it.
I think it's so important to allow the kids to, and again, I'm same thing, man. I mean, it's uncanny how many coincidences we've got as I talk, but you know, um, I think you've got to allow them to have a personality. I looked at y'all's Instagram page, earlier today, and it looked like they were having fun. I mean, these are photo shoots, but there's a personality to your group, and allowing them to kind of be themselves and cultivate that throughout the season, um, I think it takes some of that pressure off.
Yeah, no doubt. I think yeah, at least we try to provide a platform where they can kind of do that. And they're a fun group. And each team is kind of different because it's based on personalities. But we've had some of the same characters in the same movie for the last several years, and so the vibe of our team has kind of been the same the last few years. And I'm interested to see what the vibe is going to be going forward because there's so many guys that are gone and so many younger guys that are coming up and that have been in the program. But I just kind of would like to see their personalities come out. We've been doing these spring workouts in the off season, and it's just different being in the gym. You're missing all those guys, and it's a young group, and they're probably trying to, you know, get in line and maybe be a rule follower. And I'm like, I'm over here like joking around with them
Mhm.
and trying to get them to loosen up a little bit and be themselves. And so some of them are so young they don't even know what that means. They don't even know what themselves are. They're figuring that out, but it definitely makes for a much more enjoyable environment to be around when you can just kind of be yourself.
But do you customize it every year? I mean, do you look at your group and go, okay, this group needs a little bit, I need to tighten the screws a little bit on this group, or on this group, I need to back off a little bit. I mean, is that something that you evaluate from year in and year out?
Yeah, you absolutely end up doing that, and you don't sometimes don't know which way you're going when it starts. I'd had an idea. I knew heading into at the end of last season how this whole season was going to go. I knew we had so many older guys I'll never coach a team as old as we were and experienced as we were. And so you kind of know how that's going to go. And you're like, all right, I'm not beating these guys up. We're going to work hard, but I'm not beating them up in the preseason like I normally do,
Mhm.
um, because I know where we're going to be at the end. I need us to have enough juice at the end. And so I backed off a lot in the preseason more than ever. And I had former players that found out that they weren't running on the track, they were running on the turf, and it wasn't as hard, and they weren't throwing up. And I was like, guys, just trust me, it's going to be okay. Will we get back on the track this coming year with this new group? Probably so. Um, so yeah, I mean, you got to kind of figure that out along the way. Like, and some groups need. I got a group that responded to tough discipline. Like I had a really good fun group my third year that was more of a single leg group, but they liked they responded well when I got into them. When I would rip them in practice or the locker room, like it was weird. Like they liked it. And then I had a group come after them that, you know, couldn't play if I yelled at them. And so you kind of have to adjust. Coaches don't get enough credit for having to change personalities, be three different things, wear four different hats, and be a psychiatrist all at the same time. And you kind of have to do that if you want to kind of push your team to the ceiling, and that's the whole goal is to max out.
There's an old saying that it's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmys and Joes. That's kind of a silly saying, but when I was a coach, I feel like I was so focused on the X's and O's and like outsmarting my opponent and the
Uh-huh.
strategy. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed teaching the game and teaching the fundamentals. I enjoyed practice and the challenge of making a player better. I enjoy the strategy and watching film and like trying to create space and offensive strategy and defensive strategy. But like I really believe that like as I've backed up from that, it really is about the Jimmys and Joes. I believe that it's about the people. You mentioned it, the psychological aspect of it, being able to manage a group of kids, being able to help them to buy into what you're doing, the psychological element of, can I get these kids to believe? That matters way more, in my opinion, than what offense you're running.
Yeah,
I mean, agreed.
100%. I think even 7 years ago when I first got here, I probably valued X's and O's and style of play more than what we're talking about now. 7 years later, I would put X's and O's as like probably the fourth on the list. Like I would say that, you know, what we're talking about, belief and being able to have the ability to get through adversity, um, would be probably one. I would say skill set would be two, in terms of being able to dribble, pass, shoot, understand the game, IQ. And then three, ahead of X's and O's, I would say would be conditioning. Because if you don't give them any offense, but you enforce belief, you skill them up and teach them how to play, and you have guys that never get tired and are physically strong and won't get pushed around, it really doesn't matter a whole lot what you run. And it might be less is better than more in that scenario because they have a skill set, and because they know how to play, because they understand spacing. Um, and then that helps them on defense. And so I've definitely backed off of that. My assistant coaches would probably disagree because we go through the season and have about, I don't know, anywhere of like 50 something BOBs that we probably create or cycle throughout the year. It's probably absurd, but
You know, it, I had a question for you about who are some other coaches that you like to emulate, but I want to talk about, instead of doing that, I want to talk about two programs in particular. And the first one is Florida. Um, what has been so impressive to me is their ability to get out and run. I mean, it's like they're gone. And when the runouts, the ability to get up the floor, I don't know that I've ever seen a team, besides like a Loyola Marymount or UNLV that runs the floor as good as that Florida team.
Yeah. I'd be shocked if they don't win that thing. I mean, I know that there's some other good teams out there, but man, as a coach, they are so fun to watch right now. And it does. It starts with that transition offense, and they get it out of their hands quick. They don't overpound. When they catch it on the other end of the floor, they're already in good spots, and they attack you right away. I think it also helps that their bigs are such good athletes. They run the floor so well, and they are a lot of fun to watch. I started paying attention to them when they beat Auburn at Auburn back in early January, and I was like,
And nobody talked about it. I mean, like,
nobody talked about it. If they'd have done it at the end of the year, everybody would have been talking about it.
yeah. The other team I want to talk about is Alabama, and when you look at that team offensively, going back to X's and O's, you're not seeing a lot of sets. There's more of a lot of free flow with respect to an offensive strategy. So from your standpoint, looking at it, how did they make that work? What are some teaching points there that, there's not necessarily, it's not as organized as maybe, obviously as in Indiana back in the 80s and 90s, but how did they make that work offensively?
I think Nate Oates is like, you know, unbelievable in terms of being innovative. And that's the way I would describe him. He's innovative and everything's about the numbers and like they stick to it and they don't deviate. And he's got just a fierce commitment to their style of play. And I think that one of the things that they obviously do a good job of, besides emphasizing what shots they want to shoot and tempo, they obviously do a really good job of role identity. It seems like no one's really confused as to what they're good at and what they bring to the table. And that's not always the case on teams. And so I think they're winning tonight like 94-81, something high scoring. I think his eyes are going to be as big as saucers when he sees that tempo be as fast as it's going to be because BYU wants to run. And I think it'll be a really fun game to watch. Sometimes that worries me with Sears a little bit because he kind of goes in go-go mode, and before you've looked up, he's already shot three balls this way. They've shot one, and it's just a crazy tempo, and they don't seem to care. They're just trying to get them up.
People have been so critical about Oates' lack of offensive sets, but I mean, they've been the highest scoring, offense in the country. I mean, so the proof is in the pudding. They can score. They can put the ball in the hole. So, what would you say to those critics?
I don't know how you can criticize them. I mean, I really don't. I mean, they have the proof is in the pudding. Like, look at their results. Look at the individual performances. They score it like an NBA team with a totally new roster for the most part, with the exception of one or two guys. The area that has got to improve for them, they're going to continue to win in the tournament. They got to be able to guard the ball screen a little bit better. And I don't love how they guard. I think they guard like just okay, and they spend all their time, when we're going to outscore you. I think but I don't think that their coaches aren't trying to get them to play defense. I think they are. I think those guys are really good. I think that the individual defenders have got to do better and take more pride, like they did last year in the tournament. That was the difference.
I totally agree. What do you think about trailing off of a screen?
Our rule now, I mean, we're not guarding guys like there are in college, but if there's a really good player coming off a screen, like we're gonna put our forearm in his side and we're gonna ride him all the way through the screen, and the guy guarding the screen is gonna stay attached and kind of show and help us a little bit. Um, I just think they got to do a much better job with that middle ball screen too. But like I said, those guys are really good. Like I'm in a group text that Ryan Pannone put me in with several coaches from around the country that he sends like he puts a playlist together of his favorite actions. And it's usually stuff you see overseas, but it's all really good stuff. And I actually knew about it and followed it before he got to Alabama. And then when I met him after he got to Alabama, he put me in that group text. And this guy's on another wavelength from an X and O standpoint, and he's one of the assistants. They have another guy defensively who's kind of the same way. And so I know those guys can really coach. I just think that they've recruited really good offense and they're trying to get those guys to play defense. And so they got to do better, though, the individual players. I think they're a different team also um, when Grant Nelson's playing. Um,
I
he's
think
a
a lot
good
of
guy.
times they need to do close out the space and finish the defender off. It's like there's almost there's been a couple of games where I feel like maybe the defender kind of didn't close them off. There was the offensive player created space and then you don't kill the play. They're just going a little bit more, going a little bit harder. And that would be my only major criticism. I think a lot of times if Alabama commits itself to defense, then usually good results happen.
100%. And goes to show you like how hard it is to be elite at both ends of the floor. Alabama, you say, all right, what's Alabama? Well, they're really good offensively, right? Well, what's Houston really good at? They're really good defensively. And, they could have a game in the tournament where they might get beat 61-59. And that's kind of been the knock on them is they can't score, but they'll fight you and they're tough on defense. And I think Auburn earlier in the year was extremely balanced on both ends, like elite on both ends of the floor. I don't feel that way about them in the last month. And I don't think that's coming back. I think what you're seeing at Auburn now is what they're going to be in the rest of the tournament. And I don't think that's just going to magically come back. They were making shots at a high level earlier in the year. But we're also at the end of the year where they know you and they have everything on you and they're taking stuff away. And Janai Broom's not getting to play one-on-one in the post anymore. And so they're going to have to be really good in their counter actions if they want to keep going, in my opinion. Um, I think that it's great to see Denver Jones playing well for Auburn. I mean, he's a guy from this area that did not have that route like he was been in like four different schools. He went to junior college. He had a knee injury, and so for him to end up in the SEC, being the one on the overall number one seed, is a pretty cool story for him.
We got to wrap this thing up, man. I got
Yeah,
one more question. Um, Nobody can do this all by themselves. I mean, like nobody. It's just impossible. You got to have a great support staff. And so, tell me about your guys that work with you, and then also your support staff at home.
yeah. Well, I'll start with my wife at home. She's unbelievable. She's a basketball wife. Loves being a basketball wife. I don't know how she does it. I mean, I know coaches say that, but I really don't know how our family functions, particularly during basketball season with three girls under the age of 7. She's so supportive and she never held me back in any way, shape, or form. And she's great to talk to. She loves basketball. She watches more college basketball than I do because she'll be, if we have a road game, she's at home with the kids. And when she puts them down, she's turning on the TV and watching college basketball.
Does she
Um,
coach you up a little bit?
yeah, she'll tell me like so and so's playing soft or, what I hate so and so's body language. Like you got to get on that. Like she absolutely is coaching me up on the areas that we need to improve.
What about
Um,
your body language? Did she coach you up on your sideline? Whatever you want to say.
she doesn't give me a hard time. I try to remain pretty, chill for the most part. And every now and then if we're at a home game, like she sits directly behind us. There's a whole section behind us. It's kind of family VIPs, like coaches, wives and kids and big supporters. And so, she's right there. So she can see me say something to an assistant and she's like, hey, if I heard that, they heard that too.
Yeah.
And so like she's checking me on some of that you have in the heat of the moment. But She's unbelievable, and I wouldn't be able to keep doing what I'm doing without her. My girls are all in too. My middle child was crying,
Mm.
boo-hoo in tears when the Hoover game ended. I mean, she was just 5 years old. She was all in, and so that makes it fun. Uh, my staff here is special. I know a lot of coaches feel that way, but it's the truth here. I mean, I have a lot of them on top of that. It's been a deal that's attracted other good people, and we've been able to bring in the right kind of guys. We've got a lot of guys that can do a lot of things. So Caleb Brown was here before I got here. Was able to keep him. He's a varsity full-time assistant, really good X's and O's. But he's also, been in the foxhole with me for 7 years. And so there's a lot of trust there. Todd Jeffers was a high school head coach for 13 years and has coached in a state championship game with Hazel Green. He's got a lot of experience, and he's the elder statesman of the group. He's 55, and been very fortunate to have him. And then we've got Tyron Gibson, who's a younger assistant, but he's been here for 7 years. He started when he was 21 and does a great job with skill work. He coaches our JV team up really well. Our freshman coach came by way of our feeder. He was at Hampton Cove, 8th grade, and guy just loves ball, and he's a servant. And so he's been a great addition this year. We added another guy that is an engineer on the Arsenal. He's brilliant. He's like 23, but he was a GA at South Alabama, and he's like this analytics genius. And last spring, about this time, Richie Riley called me from South Alabama and said, "Hey, got a guy moving to Huntsville. You need to hire him." And I was like, "Really? I don't really have any spots." He's like, "You need to create one." I was like, "All right, he's that good." So I talked to him. His name's Cole Davis, and Cole's been fantastic. I mean, he had analytic stuff broken down for us and game film broken down for us. Like, we operate like a college in terms of the information we have to give these guys. And I felt like we got to be a lot better at film this year with our players because of Cole. I mean, he would have everything broken down before I got to practice the next day, and I'm just reviewing clips and specialty stuff. And he's just phenomenal at that stuff. And so on top of that, these guys are really good men, and our guys really like them a lot. They work hard. If I tell them, "Hey, we're going to jump," they're going to say, "How high?" And so they're a very loyal group on top of that, and just really thankful that they're here. And I know they could all be at a lot of other places, but they're here, and so we value them. And I know our guys like them, but they probably like them more than me sometimes. That's just the nature of the deal.
Part of it, man. All right, so here's the deal. So we gotta go, but this is what I want to do. I want to do this again, and maybe we come back in the fall. But I want to come up to Huntsville.
Yeah,
I want to get you guys. We're gonna get Tom's. Tom's is gonna be front and center. I'm gonna let his personality kind of shine.
yeah,
Like, this guy may have a future in broadcasting. I don't have a face for podcast. I have a face for radio, but
yeah.
we want to come back and do something live from Huntsville High School. How's that sound?
Sounds great. And when you come, I'll hook you up with some gear.
Hell, I need swag, man. I need some
Yeah,
I need some Huntsville swag.
there we go.
All right, Coach.
That was fun.
Appreciate it so much, man.
Hey, thank you, Al. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
See you, man.
And that's a wrap. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Tailgate Podcast. And in the meantime, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We'll see you next time.